So I'd like to continue with our discussion of observation and this time talk about participant and non-participant. So in your own observation, to what extent did you see yourself as a participant or a non-participant observer? And this can be very, very blurry. There's no straight lines on it, but I'd like to go over each type and give you some examples. So for participant observation, it's taking part as a member or participant as a means to go beyond simple observation, get to know another culture or context or situation, but with an understanding as an insider while also remaining an outsider. Being a participant can help you gain entree where researchers might not be welcome, and this might involve residing, working, playing, volunteering, or shadowing. So here's an example of somebody who was a participant observer in her own research with Consuelos Comunales in Caracas. And she said, by becoming a care worker, it was hoped that the researcher would be able to see the realization of the everyday world from the position of the actors or the participants or the members, and be able to interpret the symbols and meanings underpinning daily social interaction. So as somebody who's part of the observation, a part of the group that they're observing, you can kind of gain an understanding of what it's like to walk in these people's shoes. What is it like to be given the tools for the day of your work? Or what does it feel like? What are the symbols and meanings they're talking about? What is the meaning of this work? Another example of participant observation is John Hatch. John Hatch was at the University of North Carolina right before I started there and for my doctorate, and he was a health education and health behavior professional in public health, and he helped to establish the first rural community health centers in Mississippi. And he did this. He informed his decisions on how these health centers would be developed by not just observing farm workers, but also working with them. He picked cotton, he picked vegetables, he did all sorts of things. And by doing this, he not only got to see what it was like to be a farm worker, he got to understand the conditions in which they worked, and he gained entree into their lives. Not only did they just talk to him as a researcher, they talked to him as a fellow worker. And when asked about whether he was very clear with people that he was a PhD observer, he said when people asked, he was very forthcoming with the information, but not necessarily if he wasn't asked. I want to go back to what I said in prior slides about observation as being a vehicle for self-reflection. So, and this has to do with expectations of your participants or expectations of your research. And if you see this woman in the picture in the gray sweatshirt with the ponytail, this is Crystal, and she worked with me on evaluating a beading program I have with Alaska Native cancer survivors. And the whole program evolved to become a beading group, because that was something that everybody wanted to do. And we were able to talk very openly while beading. And somebody said, this person in the purple said, I wish we could show others or explain to others what beading means to us. And I thought, well, let's evaluate it. Let's try to work on it. So Crystal joined me, and I asked her what she thought this research process would look like. And she thought it was going to be super simple and just bring in surveys, people will fill them out, and then she'll work with them more. And I just thought that was so funny, because the people I work with in this group are not just going to sit around and do surveys. They're there to talk and bead and do other things and trade and show things and teach each other. They're not there to do our academic research. So I had Crystal come and not only observe, but be a participant. She did a lot of help. She helped us out a lot, looking at the beads and sorting them and ironing things for beading. But also she became a student, and she learned how to bead, which really endeared her and gained her entry into this group where people would actually fill out surveys for her. But it took her a long time, and it did not meet her original expectations at all. Non-participant observation is watching but not taking active part in an activity or a situation or whatever the phenomenon is. It's simply to observe. It's to possibly interpret what you think is going on, but making sure you know that you're just your interpretation is not necessarily what really is going on. It's getting to know another culture, context, and situation, but this time just as observed. And it's to gain an understanding as an outsider. And again, it can be from watching, shadowing, or touring. Before I came to Alaska, I worked at the University of Florida as a professor there, and we did a non-participant observation of driving and riding around campus, which had like 40,000 students, while using technology. Now, this is in about 2010, and there was a group called the Healthy Gators, and they wanted to come up with some assessments to inform policy around technology while riding and commuting. And so my students and I did a non-participant observation for this group, and we stood on very, very busy intersections, and we had little golf counters, and we had one person who was counting all the traffic going through, and another person who would count how many people were actually using technology while either riding or walking through these intersections. And so from this way, we were able to get just observational data on really what was going on campus. We didn't interview people at that time. Later on, we did focus groups and interviews to find out about the importance of being able to use technology or what they thought about technology while commuting. From the work, which was a naturalistic observation, we found that 27% of students walking on campus intersections were using cell phones, iPods, and personal mobile devices, and that a lot of people also did so while driving or riding their bikes. And this was presented back to the university, and they were able to create some, to inform their policies around some of this non-participant observation data. Another way to get non-participant observation is to just view, just to do a windshield tour, just to drive around and maybe visit stores and just see what is available and what's not. So when touring a community, you might ask, what are my impressions of the community? That's your interpretation, knowing that you have not lived or worked in that community. What is or is not available? Where do people shop? Where do people seem to hang out? Is there graffiti? Is there community art? Are there broken windows? If there's billboards and advertisements or church bulletin boards, what kinds of messages are shared? And this gives you a chance to see, what is the community like? Are they open to others? Are some people allowed and some people not? Is there beautiful gardens, or is there blight? And it's good to go in the daytime and at night and on different days of the week to just see, do things change depending on the calendar or the clock. And finally, we did a non-participant observation in Nulato, where I was working, and I was going to start a cancer project, a cancer survivorship project. And I really wanted to go in and just observe to see not only what was significant and interesting in Nulato to me, but really what was important to the people of Nulato. And the observation really helped me get over myself. So if you see in the middle left, there's a milk carton the cost is over $10, which just floors me that's how much milk costs. But it really is expensive to shop within a community. But I learned that people don't normally just go to the corner store in the community. There's like one or two stores out of houses and buy these expensive cartons of milk. They've dealt with this for so long. They know how to get over it. They know how to buy their milk so it's not so expensive. So I had to kind of see things and go around and document it for myself to get over my own biases and my own values. And then what I found really important and really that was validated by talking with people was the pride that people had in the people of Nulato. So if you see in the center, there's all these, there's like a wall of laminated articles and pictures and things that came from the people of Nulato. So the tribal council building took all the articles, everything that people did that showed pride for their community, and they put them on a wall. And that enabled me to inform my own project where people actually, I ask people to share pictures with me and stories with me about what brings them pride for their community above and beyond cancer. And from those pictures and from those stories, we were then able to go to talk about this specific topic of cancer, which can be very, very difficult for certain people. So I want to make it clear that there's no this or that in observation. You can be on a range of being an observer or a participant observer. You can be on a range of hiding what you're doing or being totally open. And you can be on a range of whether your observation is very structured or very casual. And we'll keep on talking about these elements.